listening to Where You Live, live from the Minnesota State Fair. With questions, comments, or if you just want to say hello to Gene, call 651-289-4488 and be live on the air. Now, here's Gene Sullivan.
Welcome back to Where You Live. I am Gene Sullivan, broadcasting from the True North Painting Studios, and brought to you also by American Family Insurance and the Kim Bennett Agency and Extreme Exteriors. Before we get into our next topic, folks, I would just like to let all our listeners know we've got a free gift for you. We put together a bi-monthly newsletter, and it's yours free for the asking. All you have to do is give us a call during the week at New Concepts at 952-922-2500. Ask for Lori. She'll make sure that you start receiving your subscription either electronically or by mail. A lot of great things in there. For example, our special State Fair edition is dealing with the issue of home service and companion animals, and that whole issue with them being allowed in homeowner associations where they have a no pet policy. You'll want to pick up the newsletter for that and for so much more. Well, let's go ahead with our next topic. I've been asking two questions. One was our last story, which was a homeowner who said, I don't feel I'm getting all of the services that I should be getting from my HOA, so I don't think I owe money to my homeowners association. We've been dealing with that. Our next topic is with the area of eminent domain. Have you ever gone through eminent domain? What was that experience like? If you read the Star Tribune just this yesterday, we had an article, and it's kind of interesting. It says the title is "Eminent Domain is in Decline." And it begins by saying that when Richfield, and if you remember this, wanted to clear land to put a Best Buy headquarters a number of years ago, the city got its way by using eminent domain to control the land. So what did they do? They basically went and ended up through eminent domain condemning about 70 homes and two private businesses, and took that property. They bundled it together, and then they offered and sold it to a private entity, Best Buy, for being able to put up those huge buildings that you see right off of 494 and Penn. And when eminent domain takes place today, one of the things that we're told over and over again, it's in the public good. It's in the best interest. And so my question is eminent domain always for the public good, always in the best interest? What I'd like to do right now, we've got a guest on the show this morning. I would like to introduce attorney Jim Yarosh, who is with the firm of Siegel and Brill. Good morning, Jim.
Good morning, Gene.
Thanks for taking some time to be on the show today. Now, we just met here this morning here, and I was interested in talking with you because I understand that you deal with eminent domain cases. Is that correct?
That is correct. That's a significant portion of my practice area, is dealing with eminent domain.
Now, I know that there's probably a number of cases you're probably dealing with, and we don't want to know any of the specifics with names or anything like that. But can you? There is one example that I had heard about earlier this week that you've heard about or might be dealing with a person and their business. Could you explain for our listeners?
Sure, that's true, Gene. I'm involved in a case right now where I'm representing a property owner who had operated a business in the property, and they decided to basically retire from that business and utilize their property for another use to generate some income. And when it became available, that particular government entity decided that it would like to to see that property used for another use and inquired about purchasing it. And when no resolution could be made, that municipality has now threatened the use of eminent domain.
So when I don't know if my microphone is it working here? Okay, there we go. Thank you. So in that particular case, then, or I guess in most cases, Jim, what you have is if you have someone who's not agreeing with this, and I would imagine that would be most of the cases, a person finds themselves having to take a lot of time and probably a lot of expense to fight that.
Well, that's true. I mean, the landscape changed significantly in 2006. Some of your listeners may know about the famous Supreme Court Kelo case, and then some of the changes in Minnesota law that occurred after that decision. So it's less common. Usually, the power is now used for streets, roads, bridges, schools, and the like, and no longer can be used really for economic development. But when a property owner is faced with the prospect of a governmental entity using eminent domain, and if they want to properly seek its just compensation, it does take some time, energy, effort, and money, and in a lot of cases, those expenses are not always reimbursable.
Yeah. Now, what I found interesting in this article, Jim, they referred to something that is taking place, they're talking about in Richfield, where apparently along one street there are a number of homes that have people have been foreclosed on, and people have abandoned them. Other people have been good, solid homeowners, even though they're underwater with their mortgage. They're making their payments. They're staying put in their homes. They're being solid citizens. The city's now looking at eminent domain for this block for a looks like for a park and for a trail, and they refer to it as quote unquote friendly condemnation. Is there such a thing as friendly condemnation?
Sure there is. It's basically when a property owner has some reason in which it wants to basically liquidate its property. Maybe it's been on the market and they've been trying to sell it and there's no buyers, no takers. And if a governmental entity steps up, a property owner, it's a way for a property owner to get out from under that particular investment for whatever reason they might want to. There could be some tax benefits, which is another reason why if you sell under the threat of condemnation, some of your listeners may be familiar with 1031 tax exchange benefits. Well, for condemnation, you have a similar benefit and a longer time horizon, however, in which to find a replacement property. So there are some situations in which a landowner maybe rescued or saved from its investment at some point by having a government as a buyer, and there might be some benefit to that. So there are some situations in which might meet that phrase, friendly condemnation.
Okay. So in your experience, is that something that happens what percentage of the time? Is that a small portion of the time? Or
well, when I get involved, I would say it's fairly infrequent. At least in my experience, if clients are coming to me or people are talking to me, they usually either are opposed to the taking altogether or are just trying to seek their just compensation, which there tends to be a difference between what the government believes is just compensation and the property owner.
Yeah, and let's talk about that a little bit. So generally, the valuation that is used, is that what has been on the tax records? Is that what is used by a municipality or city?
No. In fact, it's usually done through an appraisal process. Okay. When the government wants to take property, they have to get an appraisal and make you an offer, and then if that's what's used when they use their quick take power, which gives them the right to title and possession much sooner than you settle the valuation question. If they utilize that procedure, then the governmental entity just uses its appraisal as the approved appraisal of value, and they deposit that in court until there's some final resolution on the proper valuation.
But the issue that I have that I keep coming back to is we're in a time period that is not like the way real estate used to be. Ever since we've had the real estate bubble that has popped a few years ago, we can't count on values that have been continually creeping and going up, even though there's some benefit and some rise that we're seeing right now. What people have seen diminished in their values, they're people that are still underwater, and when that happens, they're expected to just take their lumps, I guess.
Yeah, you bring up an interesting point, which has to do with timing. You can't. A property owner can't control the timing. If the government wants the property, they kind of pick the time and the place, and if they have the right under the law to take it, and they meet the public purpose and necessity requirements, then they can take it at that time. Now, you have examples. If you're underwater, theoretically, you would have time to maybe recover if the markets rise and the value on your house goes up, let's say. But if they choose to take your property at a time when you're still underwater and that's when they want it, they only have to pay you what the fair market value is, not what you owe.
Yeah, the fair market value, folks. What do you think of that? We're going to need to take a break. I just want to say, Jim, thanks for being part of the show here today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
We'll take a quick break now. Don't go away. More of Where You Live after these messages.